I know that a lot of you have challenges around interviews, and a lot of you ask me a lot of questions. Interview overall is probably like the biggest topic that I get questions on. And I've told you guys two things. I've shared a couple of different themes in my streams. One, I completely despise the approach where you're trying to crack the interview, or you're trying to just kind of break into data science by reading the interview questions, or just trying to take some sort of a shortcut through the interviews, right? And we've all seen the sheets on LinkedIn with the hack the data scientist interview and pass the interview with these 10 questions, all that stuff. I completely despise that. And the second thing I've always told you is about being able to stand out and being able to do the work of a data scientist, and that's going to make those interviews easier. That's gonna, that's the easiest way to pass. The easiest way to pass is to show that you've done the work, that you're actually working as a data scientist, right? And I know that it can be discouraging when you don't necessarily do well in an interview, or it just didn't go the way you envision it. But I was thinking about an interview that I had, and it was for a company that provides they provide services to insurance companies, particularly homeowner insurance companies. They were providing satellite imagery data to home insurance companies, right? So they were in the insurance space, but they were like a provider to home insurance companies. And they were looking for a data scientist. I think I would have been like their second or their third data scientist, something like that. So I had an interview with them where they had been looking for a while. They told me that they had been looking for a while. They had conducted a few interviews, more than just a few interviews. And they invited me to come meet with them after reading my resume. And we did it on a virtual call. We did it like on a 3-way Zoom. Or maybe it was a special tool. Maybe it was one of those like coding tool interviews, because I remember there was like a coding portion of the interview too. Like they started off with that, right? So it was like a 3-way call. So it was myself, one of the tech guys, and the founder was also there. The CEO founder guy. And we started off with some with some technical questions. Like they asked me to reverse a list in Python, and a couple other things that I can't remember, but I remember that they were doing things like, how do I reverse a list? I think they asked a couple of dictionary questions or things like that, and I was sitting there typing, and was showing up on the screen and stuff. And they're asking me, kind of like the standard questions. Still a little bit more tech, but after the coding questions, it kind of turned into like a plain interview, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? That kind of stuff. And then maybe like 25 to 30 minutes into the interview, there was a little bit of a pause, and I could tell that they were like messaging each other back and forth, like the two guys, like the tech guy and like the founder guy. They were messaging each other back and forth, right? And what am I going to say, right? I'm just a candidate. I can't say. So, and so then after kind of like this like little pause, they started up again and say, oh, okay, well, what do you think about this question? And they were like slightly technical questions, like in this situation, would you use Python or would you use R, or how would you connect to this database? Stuff like that, right? And we kept on talking. So now we're like 45 minutes into the interview, something like that, right? And like I said, they've asked me some coding questions, right? Like I've actually written some code. They asked me like the plain vanilla questions you hear in every interview, and then they asked me a little bit more of the technical stuff. And then we reached like this other pause, like 45 minutes of the interview was like another weird pause. Like the three of us were literally just looking at each other on the screen. And I was basically like, okay, so like after this weird pause, I kind of broke the silence, and I was like, okay, so what's next? What's the next question? And I remember that the tech guy said, Dennis, we've run out of questions. No one's made it this far before. And that was like a shocker, but it was a reality of their experience, where they told me, they went on to tell me, because now they were kind of embarrassed. they were like, well, they were like, every single interview we've done right now has been like 10 minutes long because nobody can get past the coding version. And we asked you some other questions that we came up with just now on messaging. And they were like, we don't know what else to ask you because no one else has made it this far. Like, you're literally our longest interview out of like, I think they said they had like a dozen interviews or something. They were like, no one has made it this far. Like congratulations, you know? And I thought that was really cool. But it made me realize like how shallow that talent is when it comes to those interviews, right? Because the people they were interviewing were the ones reading the Hack the Data Scientist interview sheets, right? Because everybody thinks they can be a data scientist. But if you actually put in the work, then you can get like not just a little farther, but like 10 times farther than everybody else in those interviews. So that's the attitude I want all of you to carry into your interviews and into your job searches, where, you know what, I'm going to make these guys run out of questions. I'm going to show them that I'm the best candidate because I can answer all of their questions, because I've done the work, because I can put myself out there and be a genuine data scientist, not one of the wannabes, right? Because that's how you're going to separate yourself. But I just remember that was like a really key turning point, right? So I'm kind of giving you guys the opposite of those times when you bomb an interview, right? And those times will still happen, right? You know, no interview is perfect. You're not going to have 100%, 100% success in interviews. But I want you to be having those interviews where you're going in there and you're making them run out of questions, because you've done the work, because you can point to examples and say, yeah, when you're asking me this question, I think about this project that I did, and here were my results where I use that algorithm you just asked me about, right? And if you can do that, like I said, you're not going to be like a little further. You're going to be like 10 times further than everybody else that they've interviewed. Because, you know, that shallowness of the talent out there is still out there, right? Like, these people didn't just stop reading those hacking questions, right? And at the same time, I want you guys to think about that the next time you hear somebody talking about like, oh, data science is so hard. Oh, it's so competitive. Oh, there's no jobs out there. All this other stuff, right? Because, yeah, they're saying that because they got rejected because they bombed the interview, right? But if you walk in there prepared, you're going to have a completely different experience because you've done the work, right? So this is one of the reasons why I keep on stressing that to all of you. If you do the work, everything else comes a lot easier, right? Those interviews are going to be just formalities at that point, right? So keep that in mind. I hope that, you know, helps you keep a positive attitude, because positive attitude is also important in interviewing. But just have that attitude. Have that attitude that you're going to show them that you're the best candidate because you've done the work. You can speak to their questions. You can give examples to their questions. You can maybe point them to a published article or things like that. And then that will make those interviews come a lot easier, a lot faster. All right. So let's all be encouraged by that and keep a positive attitude, because I really think it's important.